Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunyam Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Praptasya Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrinda Vande Gurashi Charanaravrinda Mahaprabhu ki Tananritya Gita Vaditra Madhya Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Vaju Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Shri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Shingaratanama Diramarjanado Jukta Sabhatam Sa Niyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavad Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidhashi Kridvaiva Trupte Vajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Shiradikama Davayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Ne kunja yuno Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Veri Jokti Apekshaneya Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashi Charana Ravindam Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shastre Ruktastathava Vyataeva Sarve Kintu Pravarja Priyaeva Tasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dayam Sovam Tasa Yasa Trisandam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatarisha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Yaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaye Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Narasingha. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Brahmanande, Haribo. Jai Vishnu Par Paramahansa Prabhu Jagacharya Sutara Shri Shishimad, His Divine Grace of Bhojana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachar Vaishnav Siromani Parit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhari Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवसरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग श्री चैत्र महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जोग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद निदांग बुक कृष्ण सेव की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। दिलोश विशिष्य राधा नीलमाधव की जय। शिष्य मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुण श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन करुण श्रृंगरे भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to somebody bodies, all glories to somebody bodies, all glories to somebody bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Dala dala dadaine.
La la da 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 da.
La dala dadaine.
La da 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 da.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Hiranyakasipu Vaksha.
Shilatankalakalaye.
Jaya Silatankalakalaye.
Uto Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Nishinga Parato Nishinga.
Yato yato yami tato Narsimha.
Jato Jato Jami Tato Nishinga.
Bahe Narsimha Hridhaye Narsimha.
Ahir Nishinga Hridaye Nishinga.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Tabakara Kamalavare Naka Atuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vringam. Deshavadita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Abakara Kamala Bare
Advaita Shringan Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanuvringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Abakara Kamala Vare Naka Advaita Shringan Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanuvringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev
Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Nisingare Jaya Nisingare
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Sabhinashana Karna Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Gaura Pramanande Hari Bol. Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
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 Jito Mara Sharanaloy Tara Vancha Purna Hoy.
Tomara Sharanala Taravancha Purna.
Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavana Basi.
Tumi Kripa Kare Karotare Vrindavana Vasi.
Moraeya Vilas Vilas Kunjediava.
Moraeya Vilas Kunjediava.
Naya Neheri Vasada Jugala Ruparasi.
Aminayane Vashada Jugara Ruparasi.
Eni Vedana Taro Sakir Anugata Koro.
Eni Vedanadhara Sakirayano Gatakara.
Seva Adhikara Diye Koro Nishadasi.
Seva Yadhi Karadiye Karani Jadasi.
Krishna Dase Kor Eye Namoraho.
Ina Krishna Daseka Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
Sadaye Navasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmatyati Kanisha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade.
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmatyari Kanisha Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade.
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmatyati Kanisha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade.
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahmatyari Kanisha Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade.
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmatyati Kanicha Tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade.
Tani kani sapapani brahma tani kani sa. Tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda.
Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Shri Vrindaye Tulasi Devate Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devate Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence and pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavitams of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love. Shri Radha and Govind. Srimati Tulsi Maharani. Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Chaito Datpanam Marjam Prabhamahada Bhagnivapanam Shri Yukari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidyavadhujitanam Anandam Vivardhanam Kriparam Purnamita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Puram Parupya Kanya Janina Nuraga Trinada Pisumicena Taroga Pisa Ishtana Amanina Manadina Kirtanya Akshada Hari Nantanam Najanam Nasundarim Kapitamba Jagarisha Mamanani Dharmanishwari Bhakti Rajati Dori Vainanda Tandujangaram Paditamam Sune Pavamudam Kripaya Tapakarpanga Jistaduri Sajisham Chindaya Nayanangaro Shrudaya Vadanam Gadgadaya Gira Purakai Chitambapurkada Purnama Brahmane Bhaviswati Yugadam Nishena Krishakaritam Shunyanitam Karmam Govinda Vidane Name Ajishvara Bhagavatam Vishnuvam Adarshana Mahanam Garotuvam Yatatha Vidatulam Pacho Maprana Kastu Seva Paraha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Thakur Ki Jai, Om Harinaya Krishna, Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust after 4 years, that extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction realm. It is a life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we always are anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I cannot practice for them. Once you change the holy name of the Lord, you never save man. Thinking oneself lower than strong straight, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O my Lord, I'm your eternal servant. Yet somehow or other I'm following this ocean of birth and death. Please bring me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms in your lotus feet. O my Lord, will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end in the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shows many so. Even sandals me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Jai Shri 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 Krishna Ki. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, blasphemy. If the body is forgetting life or propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, consider names demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Krishna. 3, to disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4, blaspheme the Vedic knowledge of the sons of Vedic version. 5, consider the glory of chanting Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
for imagination, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. permit simple activities from the strength of chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often innovative.
Even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It's also time for chanting. Everybody with names of Vaishnava must give the Garic understanding in order to be the desire success, Krishna, reign. Now let us offer our
The Vaishnava devotees to the Lord, they are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janma Yasya Yato Nivayat Itaratas Charte Swavigya Swarat Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adikavaye Muyanti Atsuryaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatratri Sargomisha Damna Swena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth, and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire and land seen on water. Only because of him did the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravocha Paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavam atravastu Shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparir Ishwaraha Sadyorhidi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukumukad amrita dravya sambyutam Pipata, Pipata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Pipata Bhagavatam Muhur Ahoraska Bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire to Vedic literatures. This fruit has it emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantakstohi Badrani Vidunati Sritsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nastapresu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta itaranavyadam stitvam sattve prasidhati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya shiyante chasyakarmani drusta evat manishware. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benedictions from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. For my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet is such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, He is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Chintamani Prakasadma Sakalpa Vriksha Laksavrite Susurabhira Vipalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvananda Arvinda Dharayataksam Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Prakoti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tripanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopti Sora Chayatum Jagadanda Kotim Yaschaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabirya eva nijarupataya kalabi. Goloka eva nivasata kilatma bhuto. Govindamadi Purishantam Aham Bhajami. Premam Janachurita Bhakti Vilochanena. Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti. Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam. Govindamadi Purishantam Aham Bhajami. Ramadi Murti Sukalani Yamena Tistan. Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu. Krishna Swayam Samabhavad Paramam Pumam Yo. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti. Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binnam. Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesa Bhutam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Maya Yasya Jagaranda Satani Sute. Taigunya Tad Vishayaveda Vitayamanam. Satvavalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu. Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya. Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Goloka Namni Nichidamni Tale Chatasya. Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute Sutesu. Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vihitascha Yena. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shisti Stati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka. Sadhana Saktireka. Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga. Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chichesta Tesa. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga. Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetaho. Yasambutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Deepartsadeva Hitasantam Abhyupetya. Deepayate Vivita Heta Samana Dharma. Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakar Nanarna Vajale Vachatisma Yoga. Nidram Mananta Jagaranda Saroma Kopaha. Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya. Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nataha. Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Visheshu. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha. Sviyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitad Vadatra. Brahmaya Esa Jagananda Vidana Karta. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Prakataya. Yat Pada Palavi Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha. Dvandve Pranama Samaye Suganadi Rajaha. Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya. Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Agnir Mahi Gaganam Ambu Marudisascha. Kalas Tatatma Manasitti Jagatrayani. Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha. Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yatchaksuresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Rajas Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakru Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahmadikita Patagava Deyascha Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Vibhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswakarma Bandhanu Rupa Falambhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kinchuta Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bhiti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Juma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki Chid Alandam Jyotiparam Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradibhi Shravati Surabhibhyas Chasumahan Nime Sardakyu Rajati Nahiyatrapik Samaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakam Itiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Virala Charat Katipaye Ishupanishad Ki Jai Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Ishivaishyam Idam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagat Tenatak Tena Bunjitaha Magritaha Kashisviddanam Kurvan Evaha Karmani Jiji Bechek Chitam Samaha Evam Twayi Nanyatetustina Karma Lipite Nare Asurya Namate Loka Andina Tamasavritaha Tamste Pritya Vikachanti Eke Chatma Hano Janaha Anijadi Kamanaso Javio Naina Devam Apurvam Purvam Asat Tadavatu Nyana Teti Sistat Asmin Yasmin Tasmin Apomata Viswadadati Tadechati Tanejati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Shavayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanupasyati Sarvabhute Sajatmanam Tatuna Vichagupsate Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bhut Taha Tatra Ko Mohakaha Sukha Ekadvam Anupasyataha Tatra Ko Mohakaha Sa Prayagachchukamakayam Avrinam Asnaviram Sudam Apapavidam Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambhu Yatatat Yuturutam Vyadatat Jasvadipyaha Samabhyaha Antam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuyavite tamo yayu vidyayam rataha. Anyad evhur vidyaya anyadahura vidyaya iti susrumadhiranam yenastad vichachaksire. Vidyam chayasya stad vidubhayam saha vidyaya militam tirtva vidyayam ritamasnute. Andham tamaha pravisanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuyavite tamo yayu sambhutam rataha. Anyadevahur sambhavat anyadahur sambhavat iti susrumadhiranam yenastad vichachaksire. Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vidubhayam saha vinasena militim tirtva vidyayam sambhutam ritam asnute. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya piyatam mukam tatvam pusam upavinu satyadharma yadristaye. Pusanika seyamasuya prajapatya vyuharasmin samaha tejo yatte rupam kalyanattamam tate prasyami yosavaso purushaha sohamasmi. Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritas smara. Om Agnena Supatara Yasman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yudajmas Juhuranamino Bhuyustam Te Nama Uktim Vidima Om Tatsat. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, and we're going to do verse number 13 again. Shiro dadav amara danavav yutapanam unmat natam amrita labdaya adideva pristena krichapa vapur vidadar kutram nidrakshanodri Prativartakasana Kandu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place or pivot for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning rod. The demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of Lord Tortoise, who, while partially sleeping, was experiencing an itching sensation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Although it is not in our experience, there is a milk ocean within this universe. Even the modern scientist accepts that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of planets hovering over our heads, and each of them has different kinds of climatic conditions. Srimad Bhagavatam gives much information which may not tally with our present experience, but as far as Indian sages are concerned, knowledge is received from the Vedic literatures, and the authorities accept without any hesitation that we should look through the pages of authentic books of knowledge, Shastra Chakshurvat, So we cannot deny the existence of the ocean of milk, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, unless and until we have experimentally seen all the planets hovering in space. Since such an experience is not possible, naturally we have to accept the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, because it is so accepted by spiritual leaders like Sridhara Swami, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, and others. The Vedic process is to follow in the footsteps of great authorities, and that is the only process for knowing that which is beyond our imagination. The primeval Lord, being all-powerful, can do whatever he likes, and therefore his assuming the incarnation of a tortoise or a fish for serving a particular purpose is not at all astonishing. Therefore, we should not have any hesitation whatsoever in accepting the statements of the authentic scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. The gigantic work of churning the milk ocean by the combined effort of the demigods and the demons required a gigantic resting place or pivot for the gigantic Mantaram hill. Thus, to help the attempt of the demigods, the primeval Lord assumed the incarnation of a gigantic tortoise swimming in the ocean of milk. At the same time, as the mountain scratched his backbone as he was partially sleeping, and thus relieved his itching sensation. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. So this is wonderful information about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And this type of information cannot be found anywhere else except in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, we should be very careful to assiduously hear every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, so we are not misled by the phony speculators that claim to be scientists and philosophers and politicians and so-called psychiatrists and all these phonies who basically speculate and mislead people so that they ruin their lives, or in other words, waste their lives, engaging in sense gratification, and at the moment of death they're completely bewildered and they take birth again, usually in lower species of life, such as rats and snakes and aquatics and bugs and creeping things and birds and mammals and so forth, and plants. So we should understand how serious the human life is, and what is the purpose of human life. It's to understand our relationship with God and act in that relationship, and gradually through those actions of devotion develop genuine love and devotion for the Lord. And then what happens at the moment of death, rather than taking birth again as a rat or a snake or some cockroach, we will get a transcendental body that is no longer subject to birth, death, old age, and disease, and we will be able to go back to Godhead and have transcendental pastimes, loving pastimes with the Lord and the liberated devotees. Therefore it says, Antakali chamam eva, smaran mukva kalevaram, saprayati samad bhavam, yati nasti atra samsayanaha. And whoever, at the end of his life, quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there's no doubt, Krishna says in 8th chapter, 5th verse. And in the purport it says, in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. That means back to the spiritual world. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, if one wants to achieve success at the end of his life. The process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree, taror iva sahisnuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. So, this is facts. This is the reality of mankind's existence on the earth. We came here because we voluntarily chose to walk away from God, to turn our back to God, and to try and become a little God ourselves by controlling and exploiting some little part of material nature and making sense gratification the goal of life rather than self-realization as the goal of life. So most people, I would say 98% of the population of this world, waste their lives eating, sleeping, mating, and defending exactly like dogs, cats, and other low-class species. So if a person in a human body eats, sleeps, mates, and defends and doesn't give a whit about God, that person is actually an animal. They're not a human being. They have a human body, but their whole mentality, this thinking always of having sex and eating and sleeping and buying expensive beds. You can adjust the hardness or softness of the bed. Those beds cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And also buying all these expensive cars and clothing and perfumes and colognes and getting Botox and getting plastic surgery and having sex hormones and all these things, all nonsense stuff, all unnecessary, and all a waste of money and time and a waste of human life, you see. So, therefore, but this is what's taught in school, this is what's taught as success. Actually, it's failure. People fail to understand, and at the moment of death, yam yam vapi smaran bhavan tejat ante kalevaram tam tam niyatam konte tam tam ivaiti konte asad tad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, or at point of death, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So if we do not have any feelings for God in this lifetime, then we'll only think of our 401k, all the sex we had during this lifetime, all the things we ate, and all the parties and the funerals and the weddings we went to, and we'll take birth again. And have to start all over, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So this history of the tortoise, Kurma, is very, very instructive. So we discussed some points yesterday, and I'm going to continue today, because if we hear these things, we become spiritually enlivened. So, just to summarize what we covered yesterday, that is that the demons and the devotees or demigods decided they wanted to churn the ocean of milk. There is an ocean of milk in this world, in this universe, and Lord Vishnu is residing there. Shirotaksha Vishnu, he has an island in the middle of that ocean of milk. So they decided to churn the ocean of milk to produce Amrit, the elixir of immortality. Just like people go on the most auspicious days of the Kumbh Mela to Prayag or to Haridwar or other holy places whenever the Kumbh Mela is held there. And they believe that there are drops of Amrit dropping from heaven into the Ganga, and if they can have one drop touch their body, they'll become immortal, right? But where did this Amrit come from? Well, it came from the churning of the ocean of milk, and so this pastime is very significant because it has influenced the culture of India. When there's Kumbh Mela, hundreds and millions of people will go there, right? So it is the origin of that whole pastime. So anyway, they needed to churn this gigantic ocean of milk, and it's really big, hundreds and millions of miles of ocean. So they decided to bring the Mantara hill, mountain, a gigantic mountain that's in the heavenly planets, and use that as a churner. And in order to turn it, they engaged Vasuki, this heavenly snake, which is a gigantic, very, very long snake. And so at first the demons wanted to hold the tail of the snake, because if you hold the head of the snake, it's extremely dangerous. And this is a gigantic snake. It's not like 13 feet or 20 feet. It's hundreds and thousands of miles long, and like snakes have poison, right? So even without the poison coming out of their mouth, the poison is extremely hot. So when the snake breathes, this fire comes out of its mouth, right? So they were thinking, well, we'll hold the tail. It's a little safer, right? But then they saw that the demigods willfully, happily said, okay, we'll hold the head. And the demons became envious because they're always against whatever the demigods do. See, that's what a demon is. They're all... If you say chant Hare Krishna, they chant the Hallelujah, or they chant marijuana. See, they'll always do the opposite. So when they got upset when they saw that the demigods were going to hold the head of Vasuki, so they said, we want to hold the head of the Vasuki. So they were so insistent, and the demigods said, okay, you guys can do that, But actually, it was good because holding the head of the snake is extremely dangerous, right? Especially such a snake as Vasuki. So Krishna had to help them because otherwise they would all die, right? So he held the head, and they were behind him, holding on to Vasuki. So when they started churning the mountain was so heavy it just sunk to the bottom of the ocean of milk, which is huge, and everyone became very frustrated. So then, again, Krishna had to help them. So he assumed this incredible form of a tortoise. It's a gigantic turtle, and the turtle itself was 800,000 miles long. Imagine how big the ocean is if the turtle itself was 800,000 miles. And it dove in this incarnation of Krishna as Kurma dived down to the bottom of the ocean of milk and picked up the Mandara mountain on its carapace, or its shell, and came back up and brought it back up, and then everyone became all enthusiastic again because they were hopeless when they saw the mountain had fallen down. How are you going to pick up a mountain from the bottom of an ocean? It's such a big mountain also. But Krishna is the supreme controller of everything. Only he could do such things. So now they started churning the ocean, and also it satisfied Kurma because Kurma had an itch on the back of its shell. And by turning the mountain, or churning the mountain, twisting the mountain with the rope of Vasuki, it satisfied the itching of Kurma, and also help them churn the ocean. And they churned and they churned. They're doing really hard work, but the mountain was slipping off of the back of Kurma. So then Krishna again had to help. So he manifested a form of himself, a gigantic, huge form of himself, and sat on top of the mountain so that it pressed down on the shell, and it didn't move anymore, right? And in other words, it wasn't slipping off the back. So all this is amazing stuff. It's unbelievable, right? But it is true. And now, even though they work so hard, the demons and the demigods, to churn the ocean, nothing was being produced. Amrit was not being produced. So therefore, Krishna took over himself for churning, and started churning so much that all the gigantic alligators in the ocean of milk became very, very disturbed, because everything was like, happening so fast and forcefully that they were extremely endangered. There are alligators in the ocean. If you go bathing in northern Australia in the ocean, you can be eaten by an alligator. There's saltwater alligators. They're not only alligators in fresh water. And by the way, you have crocodiles, which are bigger than alligators, in the Ganges River. Did you know that? Yeah. And Durga Mata, she rides on a crocodile. Have you ever seen those posters like that? Yeah, because there are crocodiles in the Ganges. Fortunately, they're not everywhere in the Ganges. And in the ocean, there are these gigantic crocodiles. And every year, people are eaten by them in Australia. They eat human beings, or they eat anything they can get their hands on. So anyway, eventually, things started coming out of the ocean. The first thing was hala hala, the terrible poison that was threatening to destroy the whole universe. And Lord Shiva came and didn't drink it like swallowing it, but he took it in his mouth and held it in his neck. Now just imagine how big Lord Shiva can expand himself to be. And that's why he has this blue mark on his neck, where he swallowed, or at least held, this terrible poison in his neck so that the world would not be destroyed. Now, how come Lord Shiva was able to do that? Why didn't Krishna do that? He took the form of Kurma, and then he manifested the form of himself on top of like a mountain to hold the on top of the mountain Mandara, to hold the mountain on the shell of Kurma. So why didn't he drink the ocean of poison also? Because he wanted his devotee Shiva to be glorified, right? So, and then why did Krishna put Prahlad Maharaj in such a dangerous situation? Because he wanted Prahlad Maharaj to be glorified. And why did Krishna put Dhruva Maharaj in such a difficult situation? Because he wanted him to be glorified. Because Krishna can produce danger and he can remove danger, right? So therefore, the devotees are always praying to the Lord. And oftentimes, bad things happen to devotees. It's like you can see Prahlad Maharaj. He was in terrible situations. His father and mother trying to kill him. But devotees, when they get into trouble like that, they understand that and don't blame anyone, because they know that nothing can happen unless the Lord sanctions it. And whenever they're in trouble, and no matter how dangerous it is, Advaita Sarvabhutanam Maitrakarana Evacha Nirmamo Nirhankara Samadukha Sukha Shami Santusta Satatam Yogi Yatatma Dhritanishchaya Mayarpata Mano Buddhir Yomad Bhakta Same Priya. This is a very important verse, 12th chapter, 13th and 14th verse. But in the purport of that verse, Prabhupada quotes another verse, tatenu kampam samiksamano bunjana evatma kritam vipagam. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 8th verse. And that verse says, whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the special mercy of the Lord. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You see. Because the devotee knows nothing can happen without the sanction of Krishna. So if Krishna has sanctioned that he must suffer, like in case of Prahlad or Dhruva or Parikshit Maharaj or also Yudhisthira Maharaj, Pandavas, Arjuna, then it cannot happen unless Krishna ordains it. So therefore the Lord has some plan. Therefore the devotee remains calm and quiet and patient despite many distressful conditions. And he thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. Therefore, it is better to suffer than to protest. Now, this is incredible that a devotee can be like that, but we have examples of it, like Prahlada, and also Dhruva, and also Yudhisthira, and also Arjuna, and also Draupadi, and also Kunti Devi. We can go down the list. There's many, many examples. And but these are the greatest devotees. They have never been disturbed by any situation, and they understand fully that Krishna is going to protect them. And if something is happening that's not good to them, for them, it's by the mercy of the Lord. So they're not panicking. They're just continuing with their devotional service, if nothing else, mentally focusing their mind on Krishna. Just like Vasudeva and Devaki were in prison. They couldn't go anywhere, right? So they just focused their mind on Krishna. And Krishna left Vrindavan, but the gopis focused their mind on Krishna, so that he actually never left, because he always stayed with the gopis. So, therefore, how the devotee does not identify with the body. Therefore, he's freed from the conception of false ego. Well, all these things are important points for us to understand. So in the 8th canto, 8th canto, 7th chapter, let's take a look at that. Srimad Bhagavatam 8.7.17. Let's see what that says. That verse says, the Lord appeared like a blackish cloud. He was dressed with yellow garments. His earrings shone on his ears like lightning, and his hair spread over his shoulders. He wore a garland of flowers, and his eyes were pinkish. With his strong, glorious arms, which award fearlessness throughout the universe, he took hold of Vasuki and began churning the ocean using Mandara mountain as a churning rod. When engaged in this way, the Lord appeared like a beautifully situated mountain named Indranila. So this is when the Lord is helping the demons and the devotees churn the ocean. And then it says, O king, when that uncontrollable poison was forcibly spreading up and down in all directions, so the first thing that comes out of the churning ocean is poison, the hala. Along with the Lord himself, all the demigods, along with the Lord himself, approached Lord Shiva, Sadashiva. Feeling unsheltered and very much afraid, they sought shelter of him. And Prabhupada says, one may question that since the Supreme Personality of Godhead was personally present, why did he accompany all the demigods and the people in general to take shelter of Lord Sadashiva instead of intervening himself? In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya warns, Lord Vishnu was competent to rectify the situation, but in order to give credit to Lord Shiva, who later drank all the poison and kept it in his neck, Lord Vishnu did not take action. And now something miraculous is going to be said. Let's see. Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 7th chapter, verse 21. Since Lord Shiva is in charge of annihilation, why should he be approached for protection, which is given by Lord Vishnu? Lord Brahma creates and Lord Shiva annihilates. But both Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are incarnations of Lord Vishnu and are known as Shaktavasha avatars. So there's two types of Shaktavasha avatars. One is Krishna himself, and the other is an individual soul like you and me, or Brahma, or Vyasadeva, who's empowered, or Prithu Maharaj, who's empowered with one of the opulences or vibhutis of Krishna, and thus can do miraculous things like write all the Vedas, or manage a huge society in which everyone is happy and satisfied, or in other words, do things that are seemingly impossible because they have received a Shakti of the Lord. So, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are Shaktavasha avatars. They are endowed with a special power like that of Lord Vishnu, who is actually all-pervading in their activities. Therefore, whenever prayers for protection are offered to Lord Shiva, actually Lord Vishnu is indicated, for otherwise Lord Shiva is meant for destruction. Lord Shiva is one of the Ishwaras, or the controllers known as Shaktavasha avatars. Therefore, he can be addressed as having the qualities of Lord Vishnu. So now, here we see an amazing statement. That is, that sometimes Krishna will empower his devotee and do impossible things that only Krishna can do. At that point, that devotee is worshipped with the understanding that Krishna has entered into his body and is giving him the power to do these things. You see? So sometimes Lord Shiva is worshipped as Krishna when he's manifesting these, besides destruction, he's manifesting things that normally only Krishna could do, right? So that's one amazing point in this pastime. Then another amazing point is the idea that suffering for a devotee is actually mercy. So in the first canto, 6th chapter, verse number 10, it's verse 9 and 10, it says, "Once upon a time, my poor mother," this is Narada Muni speaking, "when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time." So when Prahlad Maharaj is Narada Muni is only 5 or 6 years old, his mother, who's his only guardian, is killed by a snake. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, "That is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor boy," meaning Narada, "was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put Narada completely at the mercy of the Lord." And then the next verse says, Narada is speaking, "I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north." In other words, he didn't become devastated. "Oh, my mother's dead. Who's going to take care of me?" No. He took it as a special, and he's only 5, 6 years old, right? He took it as a special mercy of the Lord and went out into the world without any fear, right? And Prabhupada writes, "Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. In other words, when you start losing all your money on the stock market or whatever, and you lose your job, and you lose your health, and you lose your family, devotee does not become discouraged. He understands that this is all the benediction of the Lord. He's lowering the fever of material sense gratification or mundane sense gratification, taking away all these instruments for sense gratification, cars and property and 401k and youth and health, right? And so that the devotee is completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. And Prabhupada says, mundane people misunderstand this. They think, oh my God, there's no God. If there was a God, he wouldn't let this happen to me. I've never been a sinner or a bad person. Okay, I eat a little meat maybe every once in a while. I'm not going to eat any more red meat. I'm only going to eat chicken from now on, or fish, right? And sometimes I go to the casino, and I did engage in some illicit sex, but that was not really serious, You say, so in order to correct such people, Krishna will take things away from them through the agency of Durga. Durga Mata is the warden of the prison. So this is misunderstood by mundane people, and therefore they get confused. They blame God. They think God is a bad guy, and so forth. So again, in the first canto, 17th chapter, verse 17 to 21, some more amazing points are made. And it says, the personality of religion said, these words just spoken by you benefit a person of the Pandava dynasty, captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas. Even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. So this is where the personality of Kali tortures a bull who represents the principle of Dharma, and also the cow who is crying, seeing the bull being tortured by Kali and breaking 3 of his legs of Dharma, the bull, and beating now the 4th leg. Okay, so in the purport, Prabhupada says, the assurances and challenges made by Maharaj Parikshit are never exaggerations of his real power. So he comes and sees this, and he's going to kill the personality of Kali, right? The Maharaj said that even the denizens of heaven could not escape his stringent government if they were violators of religious principles. So he's seeing the cow being beaten by Kali, and he's going to kill him right away, right on the spot. And he's saying that even if demigods come and break the rules of Dharma, I will also kill them. Basically, he's saying that. He was not falsely proud, for a devotee of the Lord is equally as powerful as the Lord, or sometimes more powerful by the grace of the Lord. And any promise made by a devotee, though it may be ordinarily very difficult to fulfill, is properly executed by the grace of the Lord. That's why it's very important that we should all become dear devotees of the Lord, if you want to be able to function successfully as a devotee and preach and help many, many people go back to Godhead. We need the help of the Lord. We can't do it with our strength. We can only do it when the Lord infuses us with his strength. Right? So it says, the Pandavas, by their unalloyed devotional service and full surrender unto the Lord, made it possible for the Lord to become a chariot driver, or sometimes their letter messenger. In other words, the Lord likes to be subordinate to his devotee and serve his devotee. This is the amazing thing about pure devotion. Such duties executed by the Lord for his devotee are always very pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord wants to render service to his unalloyed devotee, whose life has no other engagement than to serve the Lord with full love and devotion. Now just see, Everybody wants to serve Bezos or Gates or Ellison or these big moguls of high tech, right? And thinking that, oh yeah, I'll get rich, I'll get this and that. They're not thinking, let me dedicate my whole life to serving Krishna. You see? So what do you get by dedicating your whole life to serving these greedy people? You get old age, disease, death, and rebirth again. And then again, old age, disease, death, and rebirth again. And all in the name of sense gratification and making money and being a big success in the material world. So the more you eat, the more you pass stool, you see. And the more money you get, the more you get entangled. And the more illicit activities you can get in, the more you suffer. So what kind of life is that? That's not life. That's not success. That's failure, right? And we're pushing our kids to go in that direction. We're in that direction, right? But what's wrong with becoming a pure devotee of the Lord? Look what happens when you become pure devotee of the Lord. The Lord is so overwhelmed by the purity of his devotee that he becomes the servant of his servant. Therefore, he's the chariot driver of Arjuna. He's the doorkeeper of Dhruva Maharaj, you see. And he infuses the Shakti into Prithu Maharaj so he can be an ideal leader. And in this way, and in Arjuna, he infuses him with Shakti so he can defeat Bhisma Pitamaha, who's undefeatable. He's a much greater warrior than Arjuna, but he was able to defeat him because of Krishna's mercy. So Maharaj Parikshit, grandson of Arjuna, the celebrated friendly servitor of the Lord, was a pure devotee of the Lord like his grandfather. And therefore the Lord was always with him, even from the time when he was helplessly lying in the womb of his mother and was attacked by the blazing Brahmastra weapon of Aswatthama. A devotee is always under the protection of the Lord, and therefore the assurance of protection by Maharaj Parikshit could never be without meaning. The personality of religion accepted this fact, in other words, Dharma, the bull that was being beaten, and thus thanked the king, meaning Parikshit, for his being true to his exalted position. And then he continues, O greatest amongst human beings, this is Dharma speaking, the bull, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. Okay, this is something we're going to discuss tomorrow. This is explaining cause and effect and all the phony theories of the biggest philosophers like Jaimini, Gautama, Patanjali, Kapila, the false Kapila, and Jaimini. All the false philosophers in Kali Yuga have given the wrong interpretation or wrong explanation of Vedic truth. Each one of them has a different opinion of why people suffer, and all those opinions are wrong. So when you follow a person who has wrong ideas, you ruin your life. You make mistakes, and you become entangled, and you're forced to take birth again and suffer for all the wrong things that you've done based on wrong knowledge. So we'll discuss this tomorrow. Are there any questions? That's why I want to go over this verse of the Kurma, because there are many, many things we can learn from this pastime. Many, many things. Okay, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Bandhu Mui Savadana Te Bandhu Mui Savadana Te Janara Prasade Bhai He Baba Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy Te Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Goriya Kya Arana Koriya Maneya Sa Arana Koriya Maneya Sa Shri Guru Charane Agni Esuyutamagati Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utamagati Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa Yes, Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa Chakshudana Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu se Chakshudana Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu se Divya Gyani de Pokasito Divya Gyani de Pokasito Prema Bhakti Chahate Avidya Vinasajate
Prema bhakti ja hoite avidya vinasajate. Vedegai janara charito. Vedegai janara charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya De Amore Padachaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya De Amore Padachaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya De Amore Padachaya. Ebeyas Gusakti Bhuvana. Ebeyas Gusakti Bhuvana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Gora Haribo, Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajagachasta Tarasatarashi Shri Shrimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Chikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Swami Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sambal, glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Shrimati Radharani's appearance day. Tai Gaura Premanandi ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. Bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth and after birth. The spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. Oh, Master, be kind. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuttu Samata